Thanks for staying with us, and you're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The Labour Party has for the past few weeks experienced a mini upheaval or internal dissension arising from the purported expulsion of the party's campaign director general, Doyin Okupe, by the Ogun State Executive Council of the party. That action soon snowballed into a matter that occupied the National Executive Council for some time and led to a number of suspensions and expulsions. Things eventually came to a head when an Abuja Federal High Court pronounced a verdict of conviction on Dr. Okupe for contravening the provisions of the Money Laundering Act. He was magnanimous in accepting the verdict and decided to relinquish his position as campaign DG. Seasoned political strategist Akin Oshitokun has since then been appointed in his place to spearhead Labour Party's presidential campaign. For matters arising from all of this, we are now being joined by Professor Utomi, a member of the Labour Party and Obidate Presidential Campaign Organization. Professor Utomi is a professor of political economy and management expert. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
Compliments of the season to you.
Same indeed to you. I'm hoping that 2023 will be a better year for all Nigerians.
Absolutely, that's what we all pray for. But let's first talk about your party and your candidate and all the issues around having a campaign director general that will marshal, take care of, your aspirations to make Peter Obi the president. Dr. Doyin Okupe is out. Why did you have to snatch Oshitokun from Zenith Labour Party to be your DG?
Actually, it wasn't snatched. Akin was a very active part of the movement, the campaign. He was a Southwest zonal head for the campaign before he became the Director General. I think something needs to be understood about the nature of the Obidate campaign organization. We're talking a social movement, and it's differently structured from your traditional political party. A social movement really has an organic base. It is something that has come out of the belly of the people who look at their circumstance and think something needs to happen. So in an organic manner, it begins to evolve. And it has evolved in a manner where we have at play people from many different political parties who just want to see the country go in a different direction, which is why we have a big tent, which I convene. Now, the big tent is seen as an organic ball, like the onion, with layers and layers and layers. How did the whole big tent concept come? The so-called third force. It's been evolving for several campaign cycles. It's come out of a certain sense that the traditional structure of Nigerian political parties will take Nigeria nowhere. And this is something I'm certain about as a social scientist, certain about as an activist, certain about as a politician. Why is this so? And just think about what's going on right now. People are trading. Oh, okay. Come from that party, join me, do this for me, deliver you will get NIMASA, you will get post authority, you will get this mindset, which is what drives the election machines that we call political parties in Nigeria, essentially has brought us to a point where the focus is not a developmental state. It's not the interest of the Nigerian people. It is in the transactions that come with getting involved in the process. And what this has done is take Nigeria away from where it should be traveling, allow state capture, and a few use the resources of the Commonwealth for their personal advancement. It made Nigeria poorer, made Nigeria a more sorry country to live in. This is why there was a spontaneous decision from people. We've had enough of this. We want something. And Peter Obi just chanced upon it and became a rallying point, a symbol. So in the sense of how the big tent, for example, has emerged, we have several political parties that are players in the big tent. And there are many people in the big tent who can take on any position in the Obidate campaign organization, no matter what political party they may have come from. And as I think ZLP did indicate, Akin resigned months ago from membership of that political organization.
In August, they claim.
But yeah, but that's even irrelevant. Even if he was still a member of that party, who would be okay, in my opinion, in the concept. In the concept of Big Tent, there are people who don't want to be politicians. There are people who don't want to belong to a political party. There are people who belong to civil society organizations. There are people who belong to social movements. And they've been aggregated in this arrangement, what I like to call an organic bulb of complex redundancy, making it redundant. So you can come from this, you may want to be a mole. But don't worry about moles. Come in, moles, we welcome you, you know, because there's another layer that completely vitiates what you do as a mole. What is important is the Nigerian people want an end to this going nowhere. And really, for me, this is a workshop that enables me see what the possibilities are for a people who understand where they've come to and recognize that they must go forward from there. I'll give you a small example of what was Jeremy playing. There are people who think that they can send in moles into this movement. And then after a while, the moles will come out and say, no, we're the camping from Obidati to go to this party or that party. All the dash. You know, that's part of the games they play. Instead of focusing on how to improve the lives of people, they're focusing on games that will, you know, allow them to more or less game the system and ganache power, as it were. But this is about lives, and that's what really worries me. This is about lives of 200 and something million people. 130 something million of them, according to our own Bureau of Statistics, living in poverty. 97 million or so in absolute poverty. That political actors can actually carry on without consideration for this plight and just think that once they can grab power and use it for themselves, that it's okay. Bothers me. You know, I think of anybody who is over 60, and I am over 60, as somebody who should be in contemplation most of the time. Most of your active life has been lived. What is left is never going to be more than what you have already lived. The question of that time in any life should be the judgments. The judgment of conscience, the judgment of history, the judgment of God. But many times when I see people totally absorbed in this narcissism, this self-love at that age, I wonder what happened to humans as people with the faculty to reflect about the meaning of being. That's what I find that saddens me about the Nigerian condition. Because people who should be saying, look, we, and I have fought this system for 40 something, 50 years. Even I take a blame in why this country is prostrate. If they who have done so much damage can't stop and say, look, what have we done to our children and their children? It should not matter what my personal ambition is. How can we construct a structure, a system, a country where they can live and be able to have some dignity? Instead, we persist in putting our knees literally on the necks of the next generation.
All right. Prof, talking about moving the country forward, you've come up with some very cogent points with regards to that. Of course, there have been some changes within your party very recently with the appointment of Akin Oshitoko, which you rightfully alluded to the fact that by virtue of him being zonal coordinator of the Southwest, naturally, this shouldn't be a surprise. What expectations would you say your party has of him within this capacity?
Well, you know, I mean, I've known Akin for a very long time. As you know, Akin is a very smart person. And he sees the system very, very clearly. But let me be very honest, and Akin knows this. I wasn't in favor of him to start with because I wanted a woman in that position.
As the DJ?
Yes. We must begin to break the things that we do in this country. And I told Akin that. I wanted a woman. But there are people who have the opinion that some parts of the country relate more difficultly, you know, with women. I don't buy that, but that's a view. So, decision ended the way it is. But Akin is a very capable person, and I think that he can bring things into some structure. But as I said to him when I had a conversation with him, you got to be careful about structure. You know, we pushed and pushed structure. And people say, we have structure, you know, you put structure. No, structure sometimes is a problem as you will see the university campus running around political science students, you know, like, oh, he who says organization says oligarchy. And that is a powerful statement that comes from the work of a political scientist, sociologist, who wrote in the early 20th century, Roberto Michel's, his 1911 book, Political Parties, one of the defining texts in that area. Once you begin to organize, oligarchic tendencies creep in. And that's what even happened with the Labour Party versus the movement. When structure started trying to bring in the organically evolving support groups, people began to shrink back. And part of where we are in strategy that I am now pushing, let's take back the streets. From next week, young people, take back your country. Take the streets. And send a signal. Look, the median age of this country is 18. A great part of the population of this country is young. Less than 5% of this country, who have stolen the wealth of the country, are trying to impose their will on the majority. That's not democracy. So I'm saying to young people, go back, take over the streets, take back your country. And what Akin's task
what does that mean, Prof? When
yes.
you say go back to the street, take over,
express what you want of Nigeria.
On the streets?
On the streets, with different kinds of activities and programs. There's one that I am championing, I like very much. It's called Clean Up Nigeria. Go to the market, clean the place up. Look, just a few minutes walk from where you are here, just at the Falomo roundabout. We did one of those walks. Just around the church there. The slush, it's immovable. We couldn't even do it. We need to use heavy-duty equipment to do it. In fancy Ikoyi here,
yeah.
It tells you how dirty this country is. And to have meaning in an environment-sensitive age, young people need to care about the environment. And in activities that clean up Nigeria physically, they can clean Nigeria mentally, clean Nigeria of corruption, clean Nigeria of nepotism, clean Nigeria of indolence and incompetence. If we can clean up Nigeria, take back the street, telling people that our country needs to be cleaned up, then the message is clear to the Nigerian people. Then you can't go and finagle the process and claim that these people don't vote. And so even though this candidate is more popular, we got more people to vote because the young don't vote. That's nonsense. Because they are by far, far, far the majority.
Right, but Prof, some will argue that the sole notion of reclaiming your voice, going out into the streets, have really not done much. We've got, I'm talking about different causes, of course, not necessarily this example you've cited. So many we could cite NSAS, and the people up till today will say, look, we are talking about the same things over and over again. We had a conversation earlier about this unfortunate incident that happened with Bolanle. Of course, it's already gaining some sort of backlash online already as we speak. But what do you say about that? Is this enough to just have a voice, go out into the streets? What more can be done?
You know, Stephen R. Covey, one of my favorite gurus of personal effectiveness, wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And before he died, he suddenly realized there was one important habit he didn't deal with. And it says, helping people find their voice. The 8 Habits. He wrote that book before he died, fortunately for all of us. Helping people to find their voice is the most important habit of the 21st century, as Covey says. There are too many people who are statistics. In our world, people are just statistics, numbers. They're reeled out. They have to move from being numbers to being flesh, blood, to being humanity. That's how we will live human solidarity. That's how we live a system that cares for people. And so that finding the voice is an important first stage in any developmental movement, in any real effort at progress. People actually realizing that it's not in their interest to do certain things. You know, I mean, Nigerian political class has weaponized poverty. It's in the interest of the traditional Nigerian politician for people to be poor. Because if they're poor, he can come and give them 2,000 naira on election day, collect this thing, and do whatever he likes with the Commonwealth for the next 4 years. But if you use these various initiatives of helping people find their voice, they become educated to the realities of their condition. That 2,000 naira has driven them down the poverty lane, you know, attract negative travel of more than 100,000, more than 1 million for 2,000 naira. Then you have a new consciousness. Because consciousness is important in this. You know, people forget that we are really victims of how we think. Okay. You know, we are the choices we make, and we are victims of how we think. And helping people find their voice energizes a society to recognizing what direction they should be traveling.
I agree with you, Prof. I believe, I'm sorry that we're lingering on this. I believe that beyond finding and using your voice, because it's one thing to find your voice, another to use it, which is what we are proposing, that you should go ahead and be an activist, go back and say, fight against the things that you're not happy about. But there is also the notion of accountability. So when you're using your voice over and over again, but nobody's holding certain people accountable or asking them to face the repercussions of the actions, we begin to question the system that you are in. How do we address that? How is the Labour Party looking at this?
And this is why the role people like Akin will play is important. Because even though it's important that we ensure that organization does not mean oligarchy in terms of this, but it means systems that allow for accountability. One of the, in my opinion, great developments in thought in the last 50, 60 years, it's an increasing recognition of the fact that human history has been shaped by institutions. When Barack Obama came to Africa for the first time as President of the United States, his first speech in Accra in Ghana said, what Africa needs, strong institutions, not strong men. How do we build strong institutions? This is what leads to those boundaries. This is what leads to accountability. We often think that strong institutions are built by decreeing something into existence. The National Assembly today passed, and we see most of those bills amount to real nothing in terms of the impact. But strong institutions actually evolve. And one of the smartest thinking on institutions, a gentleman, I was privileged to have a very interesting argument with at the Hoover Institution in 1996, Dougie North, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics for his work there, makes the point that institutions evolve out of this kind of disaggregated interests, forging and forcing about what's right. And I can give you a classic example of something that's put Nigeria in a bad shape now, foreign exchange management. Back when I was in industry 30 or so years ago, people used to argue, you know, allocate more foreign exchange to manufacturers, you know, traders don't create jobs. And I used to say to them, that's not true. You play that game, you allocate, all you do is you introduce corruption, and the people who come out of it become the bureaucrats. They're the ones who come out well off from it. And no. I remember very clearly, in 1994, Abacha had just taken over his first budget speech. He was going to reverse the gains from the efforts to build a foreign exchange market. We had gone through a two-tier foreign exchange market, SFEM. We now had a market evolving, and then, boom, Abacha takes over. She's going to go back, allocate. President of Man, I was then on National Council of Manufacturing Association. President of Man says, yeah, this is wonderful, man, we get. And I was about to make a speech that morning. I just heard the president of a body that I was part of celebrating something I knew was a wrong decision. And I said, well, I don't know what will happen, but I'm sure Man will regret the position that his president took yesterday night on television. 6 months later, Man was begging that he didn't want preferential allocation because Man did not get it. He went to some chiefs, some alajis, and they bought it several times the price. After all those lessons, we managed in these iterations for a foreign exchange market to evolve. What has happened in the last 7 years, we have destroyed that. Multiple exchange rates and all of that, and today, market is crippled. I think that we must recognize that ultimately, our progress is shaped by institutions. The question, what makes for human progress? I've always pushed back on some of the conversations. There are those who insist that institutions are the heart of it. Yes, institutions play a very important role. Economists like the Peruvian economist Hernando de Soto, who writes about the mystery of capital, says, forget everything else, just institutions. Institutions are important. Historians like Ian Ferguson, Neil Ferguson, the British historian, argued that what separates the poor from the rich, the strength of their institutions. Very fine. But I think that there is a meeting point between values, your culture, and institutions. And together, institutions and values shape human progress. You know, and that's what we've not managed to do well in Nigeria.
Okay.
Our culture has collapsed. You see where people conduct themselves in government and the impact on society, and our institutions have been weakened. It's not rocket science that we're prostrate as a country right now.
All right, Prof, I mean, it's not a very long time that we have, but I just want to put in these two questions quickly. The moral burden that a lot of people are speaking about, removing Dr. Kupe for who people consider to be an Obasanjo boy for another Obasanjo person. Does this make the Obidati project an OBJ project? That's one. And two, where are you at the campaigns? I know that you're asking youth, you know, to come out and everything, but from what we have been seeing lately, the Kogi rally and the Port Harcourt rally, and what a few celebrities who believe in your cause appear to be saying, like, you know, the steam is going down. Where precisely are you in terms of campaign?
That's far from me. First of all, I don't know what it means to be an Obasanjo boy. Am I an Obasanjo boy? I want you to tell me. You know,
they have not mentioned your name along that line. Well, but Aki Oshitoko clearly, Dr. Kupe clearly.
As seen as Obasanjo boys. No,
and OBJ has shown more than once that he probably prefers, you know, Mr. Peter Obi.
Yeah, well, you see, there are many. He's not the only former head of state who prefers Mr. Peter Obi. I've had personal conversations with several of them. You know, he may be a lot more expressive than the others, but several former heads of state prefer a Peter Obi because they know.
Which other one?
It's not fair for me to begin to talk about private conversations on television.
There's just about four other ones.
There are more than four, actually. But almost all of them, you know, but almost all of them think that a country needs a momentum that stops the track we're traveling. But not even to go to that. I mean, I like this Obasanjo boy concept. You know, President Obasanjo and I have been in a very interesting relationship since I was 19. An undergraduate, student leader, troublesome one. And this has gone on. But, you know, we meet, we engage, we quarrel, we agree. And I don't think that because somebody has gotten along with President Obasanjo makes that person an Obasanjo boy. Besides, President Obasanjo is one of the greatest leaders we've had. It's part of my many fights with him. When you compare him with the others, you have to really accept that he's one of the greatest leaders that we have had. So, I don't think that Aki or Dui should pay a price because they have worked with him. Secondly, the point about campaign winning was really the point I was describing in the Roberto Michel's thesis between oligarchy and organization. The party tried to become more formal, and that's why it has the benefit of the big tent, which is less that organized. And so the big tent is now taking the business of organizing the support groups and getting new fire into support groups to go and take and own their country. The rallies that you talk about, again, there are different approaches. I have never been in favor of rallies as a political. What are rallies? You go out, send out buses, give people 2,000 naira. The more money you can spend, the more people you can fill a stadium with. And then
it already caused some issues even within your party in Ogun State, for example.
No, I know that. That's the point I'm making. That's why I don't believe in rallies. I think they're a useless way of trying to convince people.
What would you rather have?
Hey, did you see us on the streets of Port Harcourt?
I did.
Touch the people, feel the people, talk to them. That is politics. That is campaigning. Not fill a stadium with people who don't believe in what you are saying, but who have received 2,000 naira.
You really think Peter Obi will win?
Are you kidding me? If he doesn't win, I'll be sorry for Nigeria. If he doesn't, I really will be sorry for Nigeria.
But he may not win.
Everything is possible. But maybe it's time to jackpot.
Wow, Prof.
Are you not too old to jump off?
No. I mean, at least I can have peace for the few years left.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you so much, Prof. We laugh about it, but of course, we're hoping for the best because it's not
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much, Prof. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show with us.
Thank you.